welcome back to our first edition of Prop by the Bar for 2024. We're at the Geelong icon Sawyers Arms and we're upstairs in the newly renovated 2 Noble. So what a fantastic place it is, and we'll be interviewing one of the owners.
It's beautiful up here. It's absolutely cracking
Paul
up
Upham,
here. Done a great job.
A little bit later in the episode. So we've had probably a little bit longer break than usual. I needed a little bit more time to get over seeing you in an inflatable Santa suit.
Well, you can tell too that you actually spent the time wisely. You haven't eaten since 2023, obviously.
I've been in a state of shock.
What's happened? I reckon you need to get in a better paddock, Mike. No one needs to fade away at your age.
No, all good here. All good.
It's been a funny start to the year, hasn't it? 2024.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it's been.
And I do apologise to listeners for us taking a bit of time to get into this episode, but really the point is that we didn't want to come to you and talk about things that hadn't quite sort of eventuated in some respects.
Yeah.
And the market was so hard to read through the first couple of months of this year that it was like, well, we can go out and talk about it, but we're not quite sure what we're talking or what we're looking at. And it's been a bit like that, hasn't it?
And it still is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the dust hasn't settled in terms of, we've talked about pricing, particularly in the commercial space, between yield and vendor. That still hasn't, because now people are looking forward to, expecting interest rate cuts later in the year. So, people don't want to give property away thinking it's going to escalate. And
you could almost say it's like a 2-speed property market, but it's actually like about a 6-speed property market, which makes it even harder. Because you've got, like for example, let's just talk about industrial sector for a moment, right? You've got industrial sheds that are investor owned in super funds and that sort of stuff, small sheds in small developments, and these sort of sheds, we can't rent them. We can't find tenants for them, right? And they're falling back in value because they haven't got an income associated to them, and they're breaching super rules because they're not getting income, so they're coming back on the market, probably at discounted prices and things like that. So there's a bit of stress in the high volume industrial sheds for investors. But if you're an owner-occupier, they're actually highly sought after for owner-occupiers. So owner-occupiers are going in them and putting businesses into them, and they're buying them and they're chasing them. So there's still a bit of demand from owner-occupiers in that same marketplace. So it's really interesting how the differences between owner-occupier and investor now has diverged by such a huge amount.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in larger sheds, in big sheds, we're talking 2,000 square metre sheds and big industrial hectare sites, we're seeing record after record after record set. And just so you know, we're filming this on, I think it's Monday, and on Friday the EOI closed for Shocks Emporium, which is the big 2-hectare site next to the port, which is really interesting as well. Strategic site, yeah, absolutely strategic. And that's expected to set a record price as well. So we've got, I know of a block of land, industrial land of about 2 hectares that was sold for, offered, it's under contract I believe, for about $800 a square metre just in the last couple of weeks. We've got, which is a massive increase on what we've expected them to be around the $500, $600 a square metre. We've still got, there's another one I heard today of a rental, hot off the press, a rental for a 2,000 square metre shed, a brand new shed in the Grep at $200 a square metre.
Yeah, right. It was only a handful of years ago where that was probably $70 a square metre.
Well, 5 years ago, you could buy the land for $45 a square metre. Yet people are renting these sheds at $200 a square metre out there, which is $700,000 per annum for viewers. It's a huge amount of money. So in some respects, just in industrial, we've got a push on for rental increases in the higher sheds, probably a steadying of rentals in the smaller sheds, or no demand at all. We've got, for the smaller sheds, a demand for owner-occupiers, but not for investors, and yet in the bigger sheds, a demand for everything from investors, and none of them about.
Do you put that down to what we've seen developed over probably the last 5 years is the small stuff? And
well, I think the small stuff have overdeveloped.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Way too many, and they've taken up the sites, the hectare sites that would have otherwise been for the big sheds, and sucked that out. So now that we don't have the land to build these bigger sheds, there's less of them, and that's just pushed demand up. But I think what's happening in Avalon is really exciting. And I think a lot of people, businesses are looking at Geelong to provide the next level of industrial revolution that's going to support the defence industry that's down in Avalon. And where is it going to be? Where is it going to be? Because there isn't enough land in Grep. And if you're in council, wake up and smell the roses, because we need more large industrial land to put on the market so that we can facilitate this new development, this new industrial revolution that Geelong needs, and Geelong's going to get. And we're going to get it, whether the council get around to it or not, but it's going to happen. And it's happening already. And that's why we've got this demand for these big sheds, because people can see it outside Geelong. They can see that we're on the move.
This message is endorsed by G. Kent.
It is. There's other markets within markets.
Yeah.
Talk
to me about Resi.
Resi's led by the high end. So in the GFC, that was the high end properties that crashed first, and it was the coastal markets that crashed first. In this turnaround, when it turned around, when the things started coming back again, it was the high end properties, the $1.5, $2 million and above properties that started to lead the way. They sold first, and then the rest of the market followed, right? In this market, it was exactly the same. When the market was going hard in 2020, 22 over COVID, it was the high-end properties that were setting records, and especially along the coast, mostly along the coast. Now, we've seen, and then that all fell away, and we saw huge amounts of listing numbers down the coast, and we saw no sales above that $2 million for an extended period of time, 12 months odd, or very minimal in the last 12 months. And then in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've seen, I think, 4 or 5 of the big sales come in the market and sell at good record prices, pushing above reserve. So we're starting to see the big end of town lead the charge again for the housing recovery, and it's coming from these big ends. And I speak of a sale last weekend, 2 at 13 Balmoral Crescent, Rippleside, 1.75 million for a 4-bedroom townhouse. Not bad, got good views, that townhouse. 18 Eastern Beach Road, Geelong, 4.2 million. 22 Virginia Street, Newtown, 3.1 million. And Rhines Road in Wellington, 3.5 million. So you've all been sold in the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and there was another one in Noble Street that sold for 3.2.
Oh, you're right, there is, yeah. So they are just, they're coming. We didn't have any for a while, and now they're starting to come. So we're starting to see the high-end market get pushed, but we haven't seen the low end yet. I would still say that we're still stagnant at the low end.
New home approvals are at a 10-year low as well, which predominantly would make up that first home buyers market.
And that makes me laugh. Because the government, what happened to their 80,000 build target? It was going to relieve the strain on supply. Well, the land markets are buggered out there in the estates. Their sales rates are very, very low. Construction's, as you just said, really low numbers, way off the pace. And we're starting to see, I think, a bit of a push on sort of infill apartments and stuff like that have gone okay, maybe because of a result of that. But I just think that the government's going to need to come to town. They've taxed the hell out of the land market. They've scared it to death. Around Geelong, we've got a thing called the earless dragon.
Earless dragon. You have to fill me in on that one.
Okay, so the earless dragon is a species that was otherwise thought extinct. And there was, I think, someone from the EPA has found a few of them somewhere west of Melbourne, and they don't know where. And they think that they're an earless dragon, they're not quite sure. But they've found a few of them, and they now think that they've now put aside most of the Western Growth Corridor of Melbourne and all of Lovely Banks area and into Western Growth Corridor as areas that need to be examined for the earless dragon. Which means that we've got, I think it's like 250,000 hectares, but I could be wrong in that exact number, of development land that was otherwise for PSP development of new land to be released. It's been put on hold while they undertake these studies of the earless dragon and where it could or might live. And that's on top of the golden moth and the barking tree frog. So altogether, it's like a sitcom from a comic book.
Yeah.
You've got the barking tree frog versus the earless dragon versus the golden sun moth fighting it out to stop land development, the evil developers throughout Victoria.
I actually don't know where to go from here, but we should go somewhere else. So let's talk about Market Square. We keep talking about it. It's a contentious issue. A little bit of a committee formed of about 50 people, or 50 people turned up.
Were any of them owners of Market Square?
Well, no, that's probably the biggest gripe of it all. They've gone and spent $250,000 on a study.
$250,000 of public money spent to find out whether we should do something with Market Square.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which if you're not engaged with the owners, I'm not sure what the point is. But having said that, there must be a plan there. I can't fathom why.
Aren't they in trouble from giving money to the wrong football club or something in the paper? yet they're happy to spend $200,000 on a study to tell us something we already know.
We probably should move from somewhere else as well on that one. So we spoke about some Resi stuff earlier.
Yep.
And alluded top ends taken
Top end's
off.
going well.
How about some of the other sectors? Retail?
Retail's an interesting one as well because, again, you've got two-speed markets happening. We've got areas like Packen Street, Newtown and Little Mallet Street, Geelong, which are flying.
Yeah.
And they're getting record rents.
Well,
so there's been
seen upwards of $600-700 a square metre in Packen Street at the moment.
$1,000 a square metre for those ones that Darcy signed up. So there's been 4 at $1,000 a square metre. I think they were outliers though, because the next one's down from that, do jump back down to that $650-700 when they're not national tenants after specific locations. So they've jumped, they're pushing the envelope. Little Mallet Street's had a couple of big signings of rentals in there as well of similar $650 a square metre sort of rents, which is incredible. And from restaurants from outside of Geelong, which is great. So hopefully we see some of the big restaurants from Melbourne starting to come down and get involved in that precinct and really start to roll it through there. But we're outside those precincts, you've really got a pretty struggling market outside that. You've still got your Mirrabel Streets and your other areas around that are still struggling for tenancies and still have a lot of vacancies. So we're still, it's a bit of a two-speed market within retail. And it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to recover. Car parking around the CBD still has a role to play in how the retail operates and happens. But I think the biggest thing is really with retail, and I think retail, as much as other markets, they play into what's happening from a macro level. In that, we are down, I think retail turnover is down 1.1% this quarter. The GDP is down by 1%. The economy is basically at a standstill. And I reckon at some point this year, they're going to announce that we're in a recession. We'll have to go into some sort of recession. If it's only just for a quarter in and out, a recession is just a slowdown. It just means that our economy's gone backwards, and there's no problem with having a recession. It's part of our system. We have to have recessions. Now, we might go into a recession for a quarter or a bit, but I think that will then trigger the RBA to maybe look at the cash rate. And the
most are saying maybe September, 1 November, potentially, 2 this year.
And I don't think people that own property should be overly concerned. I think they should be very happy to see that. I think it's now in people that own property's interest to see the economy going into a recession enough for the government to change some fiscal policy, but also to decrease the cap rate with the RBA, and then we might see a lot more lending out there and a lot more activity, and that will drive a bit more demand, especially through retail.
Well, and I think that's what gets some of this development, where we've been in a really tough development space. We've had the cost of funds, the cost of materials, the cost of labour through the roof, where we're seeing a lot of developments don't stack. So I think with cost of funds coming down, we'll start seeing the end product, particularly in the apartment space, start escalating. I think that will be the catalyst to seeing a lot more development happen. I think
we will. I think it's nearly everybody's predicting a 3 to 4% increase in property values before the end of the year. So across all different predictors, PropTrack to all the banks to release their data, they're all saying property is going to grow by 3 to 4% before the end of the year. So I think that's going to happen at the end of the year, but it's going to be, like you say, it's going to be driven by some of those developments. And speaking of development, how good's the convention centre going to be? So that's going to drive it, and to see that activity down there, it's just amazing.
It's all happening. But you alluded to a 3 to 4% increase in some revenue. It'll be welcome relief to property owners with the land tax bills they're
in
receiving.
Capital value, Well, land tax. There's actually, so far this year, there's been excess of 300,000 more land tax assessment notices go out than have been set out previously. And that's because they've reduced the threshold of land tax down, but also, which is captured in a whole lot of property that was owned and their site value, which the land value was below the $300,000. So for example, a lot of coastal properties that were being generationally owned have been rated lower than $300,000 in land value. Well, as you know, land's gone up in price, but they've also dropped the threshold. And both those things have had the impact that you've got 300,000 odd properties now receiving land tax notices that never had them before. So land tax is going to have an impact on a lot of those generational properties. They're not owned, they're not being lived in, so they'll cost people more than they're worth, and people will turn around and put them back on the market. So I think land tax is going to have an impact on this market during the latter part of this year as well.
Not going to change.
What do you mean?
Well, I think they're just going to keep increasing the land tax.
Well, they've got to get their money back, don't they? They spent it at COVID, they've got to get it back.
Speaking of money, funds money?
Haven't heard about it. I mean, I know it's supposed to be around somewhere, but looking, can't see it anywhere. I think crickets is the answer to Commonwealth Games funding. What's happening with it? No idea.
Shall we get on to our interview now?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul Upham, excited.
Okay. Well, it is that time of the episode where we sit down with our guests, and as mentioned earlier, we are with the owner of Sawyers Arms, Paul Upham. So thanks for joining us on Propped.
Thanks for having me.
So we're upstairs in Two Noble. What inspired the change and I guess the renovation up here?
Yeah, look, I think it was coming from the Lorne Hotel. It was really probably again a retail play in a way. It's looking at spaces and how do you capitalise the most out of those spaces. Upstairs where we were now was a function area. It was probably doing 50 to 80 functions a year, and we just thought we could use the space to recognise some greater revenue. We were fortunate enough to have a great front of house and Chef Mario that we had in Lorne that wanted to come and join us. So we took a leap of faith and decided to renovate the space and put an Asian fusion restaurant up here. And we've been open since August, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, really well received.
Yeah.
So on that, you were the custodians down at the Lorne pub for how many years?
10 in total.
10 years. And why that? Why the change? Why the?
Well, I think for us it was probably Justin Hems had been working through a broker looking at property in Victoria. The broker approached us and said Justin wanted to come and have a look at the property. At that stage, we probably didn't really have any interest in selling the hotel, but we put a price up, and he was sort of keen to come down and look at it. And he essentially came down, flew his chopper down with his 2 or 3 people, looked through the venue for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then made an offer on the way home. So we were pretty happy with that. And I think it was just an opportunity cost. At the end of the day, you're sort of like, do we stay another 5, 10, 15 years and potentially, yes, the hotel will be worth more, or are we in a better place to be able to sell the asset now and look at other things that we can do with that money? So that was sort of the decision that Dad and I took, and it's been fantastic for us. So I've enjoyed coming to the Sawyers Arms Tavern. Been really lucky that the Clatworthy family were happy to sell us the business after having such a long stewardship here. So it's been a real privilege to do that. And so for us, it's being able to create this upstairs, using the space at the side of the hotel now to create a charcoal grill or steakhouse restaurant named after Mrs. Clatt, called Eileen. So,
fantastic. When do we expect?
So hopefully June.
June?
Yeah, so not too far away.
Yeah,
and that sale, do you mind if I say?
No.
Okay, so that sale was 38 million, is what was published, and it rocked the world, the hotel world, and the property world as a valuer. It rocked us all, took us all by surprise, but no one saw it coming. And then it wasn't the only one out there though. There was big hotel sales in New South Wales and Queensland, and that market had been flying for a long time, well, for a few months and prior, but we hadn't seen anything like that in Geelong or in Victoria. And then that followed by a couple of other sales. There was I think the East Boundary Hotel for 35 million, and there was another one in Melbourne for another 30 million. So there was a spate there of big sales. But that sale, when it happened at 38 million, were you surprised at that number, or did it take you guys by surprise?
Yeah, it was. The multiple was considerably high, and I think the thing for Justin probably plays in the fact that his rebate on beer is significant, which probably double or maybe even triple what we were receiving. And plus he's the 4th largest importer of wine. So they were sort of 2 key things that he was really interested in looking at, is what was our total beer sales, knowing that he'll automatically get a savings there, and also wine as well. But the numbers are big. But I think it's, good cash flow businesses and constant good cash flow businesses, I think, again, are difficult to come by. So it has been one of those industries that's been really well received in terms of, if you've got a good business and it's got a good cash flow and constant cash flow over a period of time, I think people are happy to pay what would be perceived as over.
It led the way, and you've got, like for example, the Vale Hotel in December 22 million. And that's a yield of 10%, 10 to 11% off and with gaming, that had 34 gaming machines in there as well. The Flying Horse in Warrnambool went for 6.3 million. The Apollo Bay hotel, 11 million. So we have now had, it led the way. Now we've had a raft of big sales within the hotel sector. And still more recently, when the rest of the market has fallen fairly flat, the pubs, hotels have continued to trade actively in that market. But generally, they're all selling to corporates and to the big guys, two or three buyers, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, I suppose that's probably one of the harder parts of the industry in terms of when you've grown up owning family businesses and running family businesses, that more local businesses are going to more corporates. So yeah, you're sort of seeing the families moving out of the industry.
Yeah, we've seen a massive divest of family holdings into larger corporations. But we've also seen on the back of that, AHL put on all their properties on the market. So that was done from a corporation level, but they put on hundreds of pubs and hotels that they owned onto the market and sold them back in. And again, they were picked up mostly by corporations and by so you could put a circle around 2 or 3 major groups, the Black Rhino Group and these sort of groups that have been buying them up. And interestingly, now you've got the Sphinx Hotel on the market at the moment, which is a really interesting play as well. Have you had a look at that at all?
I've had a quick look at it. It's probably not something for me at this moment. I'm really sort of.
What could you do with that facade?
Well, you could probably do a lot with facade, but I think in its day, it was one of those things that again, people recognise those things. You know what I mean? So everyone knows about
it's
the Sphinx,
fantastic, isn't it?
And that's the thing.
There's the Warnie Poker Nights there. Yeah, it's a Geelong icon.
It is,
and it's on the market. I think they're chasing upwards of 45 mil, I think it is. They're asking for that. But when you work out what that looks like with the revenue that they've advertised, that actually sounds about right with comparison to those ones we've talked about.
Absolutely.
So it's actually, they're not asking over odds for it. I reckon they're going to get it.
I would think so. I think the guys have run a great ship there for decades. And I think there's a good opportunity for someone that likes that market.
And there's a land play to go with that as well. You could develop that land. There's hectares of land there that they haven't done anything with. They could go up. There's accommodation at the back. There's quite a bit in it, isn't there? So it's a bit of a thing. So the Sphinx Hotel, Mike, on the market, that's going to be interesting.
There we go.
Have you heard much about it from agent level?
Not really. I think it's only speculative stuff, but nothing really firm at this point.
Nothing firm.
Nothing firm.
There's nothing firm about the Sphinx, Mike. I'll give you a tip. No, it's a great. And then obviously what's happening around Geelong in the hotel sector must sort of invigorate you a little bit with what they've done. The boys done the Queen of the West. We walked through, and the Eureka, and so many other ones. There's a lot of emphasis now on spending some money in these buildings and doing what you're doing here.
I think capital improvements is the key, right? Like you can't rest on your laurels, and the customer wants to see a great venue and have a good experience. So you just got to continue invest capital investment, but also invest in your people and make sure the customer experience when they come in is exceptional as well.
Does the factor that the Geelong Footy Club across the road, 9 games a year, not significant in terms of not enough nights, but that's technically a hospitality business. They're serving about 10,000 meals every time there's a game. Does that impact what you do here and how you operate?
No, not at all. I mean, the interesting part for me was when I bought the hotel. The first game I walked around all of the pubs. I was just interested to see.
Yeah.
I think the great thing for us in terms of the football is if we had a bigger venue, we'd fit people in. So people are still really keen to come to pubs before the game, and I think everyone gets to fill their boots the 9 times a year. I don't think you'd have too many people that'd be complaining as a publican being within a stone's throw of the pub. So I think for us, it's really, we'd love to see more events happening outside of just football on as many occasions.
I extend the beer garden, put a mark out the back every game.
Well, correct.
Pre-game
possibly.
drinks at the Sawyers.
I haven't said, can we get we might get the doggies to come down here and play every other week. That'd be fantastic.
Could that be?
Correct.
That'd be amazing.
Well, the capacity has just increased to 40,000. So the opportunity for more big bash, more concerts. What else have we had there?
Foo Fighters. Let's get them back every year. They were great.
There's lots of opportunity for Geelong there.
Absolutely, and I think that's just I know the clubs have done a really good job in trying to make it more of a precinct now as well. So I think that'll just keep developing over time. I think it's a great thing for Geelong, along with what they're looking to do in the waterfront in time to come as well, which I think will be great.
Well, congratulations about everything and to doing this, but also for the sale at Lorne. I'm hoping it changed your life. That sort of money's generational, so I hope it sort of.
No, I think that at the end of the day, that was probably the key decision, was being able to take that capital and then not have to worry too much about what happens in the future.
Lucky position to be in.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Cheers.
You happy to take us for a quick tour?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to start upstairs at 2 Noble. How many patrons up here?
So we seat about 50 patrons. So we generally find on Friday and Saturday nights we look to do a couple of sittings, an early and a late sitting, and configuration as many people as we'll get. Obviously 2 people up to groups of 20 or 30 at a time, depending on what's sort of going on at any one time.
Open how many nights up here?
So we're open 7 nights and open for lunch Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, nice.
Do you serve a chicken parma?
Downstairs we do, upstairs no.
As long as we've got one somewhere.
Yeah, I think we've got one of the best. So,
So this is Asian cuisine up here, isn't it?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Fusion?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Asian fusion.
Asian fusion. Well, the decor is awesome. It's come up great.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, no, the Philippa who also did all of our work in lawns helped us out here as well. And she does a great job.
Looks great.
Come on, real good. Real good.
All right, shall we wander downstairs?
Look.
Okay.
Do you know chicken parma?
Hey?
Can you do an Asian infused chicken parma?
Oh, I can.
Yeah, we're all like that.
I can try.
We're on. Asian infused chicken
I
parma.
just don't want to break the tradition, you know.
Break it.
But if I must, I will.
Good lad. Good lad.
All right, so now we're down the main downstairs dining area.
Yeah, correct. So downstairs, Pete and Lou did a great job about 7 or 8 years ago and renovated all of downstairs. And so we haven't really touched a thing. All we've done is we've massively increased our wine list. So we've got a fantastic wine lift. So I needed to put some more shelving in above the bar to fit in all the wines. And then really from down here, it was really just trying to elevate the food slightly. It's always had a great reputation as a gastro pub. So we've just tried to continue that. We've had Mario upstairs, the head chef, who's been working with us, and also had a previous chef who worked at the Builders Arms in Melbourne, Jackson Hunt, that had also really helped us out with refining the menu here and just elevating it slightly from where it was.
Yeah, great.
I like the fact you didn't change it, I'll be honest, because it's like traditional Geelong a
It
fair
is,
bit, isn't it? So,
yeah.
so I love the fact you sort of acknowledge that and just sort of went with it. It's great.
And the fact that, when people come in, they're always just love the old feel of the pub.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of cases now people sort of tend to go too far, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a beautiful old historic style
She's
pub.
great. Yeah. She looks beautiful.
Now, can we get a sneak peek of the
Absolutely.
new venture, Eileen?
We'll head out the back and I'll sneak you through. So it's just a show
great.
at the moment, but I'll be able to talk you through a few things.
Well, I love what you've done with the place.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Now this is
Only a couple of minor things.
on
to
a couple of
complete now, right?
couple of things
Yeah.
to get done, right?
That's it.
So this is Eileen's.
This is Eileen's.
restaurant.
Yes, so named after Mrs. Clatworthy, who had the hotel for over 50 years. And so it was just a testament to her. So as we're looking through here, we're standing right next to the cool room. The charcoal grill kitchen is going to be just through here. All the way through there, dining, and then a large deck at the front of the hotel.
How many
from there.
patrons do you expect?
So
to
again,
get?
probably similar to upstairs.
Yeah.
About 50 people.
Yeah, nice.
And we're looking to sort of run Monday to Saturday at this stage, lunch and dinner.
Yep.
And we think Geelong's probably in need of we probably put a little bit of a French style on the steakhouse. So we really hope that businesses get involved in terms of patronage during the day. And then obviously groups of people want to come in and dine with us at night.
Yeah.
Well, it's good the French thing because Bistro Plume, I think, we're very much the French one, and then Nathan and Kate have gone overseas,
Yep.
and so I think they're doing
Bistro
a slight
St. John
different
as
thing
well.
of it.
Yeah,
John's
no longer
gone,
with us, which was great.
So it's probably good to get another French cuisine back
Yeah.
into town.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be
well,
good.
that was sort of our thought line, so I'm glad
one
you...
of my favourite cuisines. So look forward to a steak and a red. June, July.
Yeah, June, July.
Yeah.
Hopefully early June.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the tour. Love what you're doing to the place, and thanks very much.
No
for being
problems.
a
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks, Paul.
Thanks again.
Cheers.
Thanks, Paul.
And again, just want to thank Paul for the chat and a subsequent tour of really a Geelong
I
icon.
love people spending money on these old, beautiful buildings around Geelong and
Yeah.
bringing out the best of them. And he's done a fantastic job. So it's
And
amazing.
speaking of a Geelong icon. We have sadly lost one of the greatest Geelong icons and property holders and developers in Geelong, in Dennis Moore, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago.
Yeah, Dennis was a great mate of mine, so if you excuse me if I get this out the right way, but he was a fantastic fella. Dennis, for many, many years, used to come into my office just irregularly and just to say, "How are you, young fella?" And "What's happening, young fella?" And "I've got some money, but it's burning a hole in my pocket, young fella." And he had all these great ways of saying stuff, but I think one of the most funniest things is actually how he used to approach property. And he would have a crack at everything, and he would take on the authorities with as much delight and glee as anybody I've ever met. He used to, so one of the examples was perhaps down at Leopold, where he built his own channel. And it's a fantastic story because he decided he wanted to put the channel there. Don't worry about the permits. So he's dug his channel in, and then the councils, I think it was actually Parks Victoria, were doing a survey of the bay, and they found it, and they see on their survey this marina that's been constructed in Leopold. And they're ringing up the council, the story goes. This council, what's going on with this marina? We didn't permit a marina. And the council's gone, well, we haven't permitted any marinas either. And they've come out and had a look, and yep, sure enough, Dennis has built himself a marina. And so one thing led to another, and there had to be a big VCAT inquiry, and he got a VCAT and everything. So Dennis agreed to block up the entrance to the marina. So he rolled out a big boulder and put a boulder in the middle. Of course, then he went and gave the land away around the marina to the scouts, to the fishing club, and to everybody else. And so now the council is forced to move the boulder, I think, so they can get their boats out.
Masterstroke.
And it's masterstroke.
He's a great man of Geelong. Lots of development, and be sorely missed. So condolences goes out to all his family.
He was a great man, and someone that I'll always look up to, someone I actually loved, and I'm going to miss him greatly. So value, Dennis, and thank you for everything you did for Geelong and for blokes like me.
So to that end is the end of our episode. So again, I'd like to thank Paul Upham for hosting us here in What an Establishment, and really enjoyed our chat. And again, if you want to hear from us, don't forget to subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you next month for another episode of Proct. We'll see you then.